I'll be completely honest, guys. I don't know what I was expecting, but this is the most pleasantly surprised I've been with a new character in a pretty long time. This is Mortenax Blade, and he is killer, man. He is so good. And just like many other fictional characters, including the Raiden Shogun, he's also got a chest blade, which I think is really interesting. But anyways, honestly, I don't even need to do a long intro here. I'm really excited to tell you guys about Mortenax Blade because he is really good in a lot of scenarios, and he's just a pretty cool character overall with all the things he does. So with that being said, my name is Braxophone. You can call me Brax. We are on the creator experience server for version 4.3. Let's get into it. So Mortenax Blade is a very versatile character, and I'll go over all of like the teams and stuff in a little bit. But in today's showcase, I actually want to use ACHERON because I know ACHERON is a fan favorite. She's one of my favorite characters as well. And I really think that people are going to be happy to see how well he can perform with her and how strong she can be now, even at E0S1. With that said, though, I am going to be using a premium team because that is the cost of greatness, my friends. I've hired this car to stare at you. Anyways, with that being said, this is an E0S1 showcase. So this is like basically as premium as free-to-play players could get, but not what I expect you guys to have at all. Either way, there are a ton of different characters you can run with Blade, and I don't want you guys to think that he is not free-to-play friendly because he absolutely is. I will just show you that after the showcase. So with all that being said, let's get into it. Now, in version 4.3, they actually released a new version of Memory of Chaos, and as much as I would love to show that to you, I do think it would take a little bit longer than I want to spend showcasing, but the team can absolutely clear it, and you'll see why after we clear this in like maybe 2 cycles or so. Anyways, we will be entering with Mortenax Blade's technique. Let's get in there. All right, so here we are in combat with Mortenax Blade. Now, this guy has quite a few buffs and debuffs, and it may be a lot for you guys to process. So if you ever get lost along the way, just remember that he makes you do big damage because the enemies get debuffed every single time you attack. That's all. So we'll start off with his technique just because I used it to enter combat to show you kind of a cool thing. So Mortenax Blade almost feels like he could be a Nihility sustainer, but he's not because he eats his own HP, so he won't last very long. But he could be if he didn't eat his own HP. Anyways, he's really cool. He inflicts taunt on enemies once you use his technique and decreases the damage he takes by 90%, which is absurd. So, but anyways, if you're not a stranger to Blade, you are probably pretty familiar with Blade's whole HP thing. Regular Blade consumes HP and restores his own HP. This Blade is technically able to restore his own HP, but it's not really something you want to be doing. He does take his own HP though, and it's a core part of his kit. So Blade's ultimate is really powerful. This guy is Jiaoshu Pro Max, okay? When his ult is up, he applies Balefire Bind to all enemies. What that does is it reduces their defense by 30% at talent 10 and increases the damage they receive, which is a vulnerability, by 50% for 2 turns. So 30% defense shred, 50% vulnerability. That is ridiculous. And it hits all enemies. Then it'll consume 20% of his HP and deploy a zone. Now, the zone is insane, okay? Here's what it does. It's a little ridiculous. It increases your crit rate by 20%. It increases your crit damage by 60% at talent 10, and he unlocks a new ultimate that does a ridiculous amount of damage. On top of that, whenever an ally attacks, due to his talent, you will apply another Balefire Bind on the enemy that is attacked. So basically, this defense and vulnerability is Herba uptime so long as he has his ult up. It's ridiculously good. And in addition to that, this will basically take place of a res for him. If he gets knocked down by an enemy and runs out of HP, he'll dispel the zone and he'll lose this state, but he'll gain 50% of his max HP back. So the thing is, you don't actually want to do that most of the time. There might be some cheeky strategies you can do with it in the future with like sustainless stuff, but typically you don't want to do that just because you'll have to spend the time to get his ult zone up again, which then further increases his crit rate and crit damage. And there's also some other added effects as well. But when I say that his ultimate is ridiculously high damage, his second ultimate, I mean it. 350%, that doesn't look like a crazy multiplier, right? But if you consider the fact that it is HP scaling, 350% is pretty dang ridiculous, and I love it. You will see his damage match up to ACHERON's even sometimes. It's pretty crazy. So great overall supporting character, but he also dishes out enough damage to where he could actually be a main DPS as well, it feels like. Now, Mortenax Blade has 160 max energy, and he can overflow 80 energy with one of his passives, but there's another cool effect that you need to be aware of. So basically, whenever the battle starts or whenever the zone goes away, Blade will get 75% of his max energy if his energy is below 75%. So basically, it brings him up to 75 no matter what, which is 120 energy. So he only needs 40 energy to be able to ult again, which unfortunately is not one skill's worth. However, because he's taunting the enemy, you're probably gonna be fine. And I didn't really talk much about the taunt yet. I only talked about the technique taunt, but there's more taunts than that. So additionally, whenever you get max energy, all debuffs get dispelled from him. So if there is any sort of debuff that is like inhibiting him or anything like that, if he didn't pull Silver Wolf 999, he does get a cleanse for himself. Now, in addition to that, while we're talking about the crazy amount of damage that you're able to do with his ultimate and the buffs to your allies, there is another buff to your allies. I just waited to read it because it has another effect that I'm going to read off in a second too. But essentially, whenever the zone is active, your allies will deal 50% more damage. So 50% fall on enemies, 50% damage to your allies, and a 30% defense shred. Ridiculously good. I'm not sure where I have to cut this in the video, but I just want to let you guys know that his ultimate damage increases by 75%. Other allies also get it if there's multiple nihility. If there's not, he still gets it. So that is all it is ultimate, by the way. His talent is pretty relevant though. So if you guys know Blade, he loses HP, he tallies it up, he does a follow-up attack in response. Now, he technically has a follow-up attack in this kit too. It's just the same thing as his skill, but essentially he has charge. It goes up to 9 points. Every single time that you apply Balefire Bind to enemies, he gets 1 charge, and you're going to be doing that with every single attack done by your allies. So faster teams means he gets more charge, does more damage, and the same thing for ACHERON, because whenever they get applied a Balefire Bind, she's also going to get a stack towards her ultimate. So it's really, really good. At 9 charge, it'll consume the 9 charge and then regenerate 25 energy and do an attack with his skill. It'll immediately move, which is kind of cool. And there's also a passive here that makes it so that when he's in the zone, he takes 50% less damage and he gets 50% more healing received. And after he gets attacked, he then applies Balefire Bind to enemies and gets a charge. So essentially, his full kit applies 30% defense shred, 50% vulnerability, increases ally damage by 50%, and on top of that, he's going to be launching off these skills that deal damage based on his max HP. What does his skill do? Consumes 10% of his max HP and deals high HP scaling fire damage to every single enemy. So he is AoE, and in addition to that, he'll also deal 4 instances of extra damage with it. Now, the cool thing is when you use his skill, it doesn't consume skill points, but you can't use his skill unless his ultimate is up. So his ult zone has to be up for you to use his skill and to get that damage. In addition to that, when he has 1 HP and his HP can't be reduced, he can't use his skill anymore. So that means if you have a preservation character that is not going to be restoring his HP and he doesn't die from an enemy, lose the zone, and then get 50% HP back, he basically just does nothing but debuff at that point. His damage is done. Anyways, I feel like I've explained enough. He's ridiculous though, and I'll show you right now. Okay, so we're running Hyacinth in this team. We're gonna go ahead and skill immediately into our ult. We're not going to get like many benefit from this because we don't have Mortenax Blade's field actually up. As you can see, we do have ACHERON's ult, but I'm actually going to sacrifice a couple of the overflow stacks here. I'm going to go ahead and skill with Cypher. We're going to now be at 2 stacks. And then when Mortenax Blade attacks here, oh, we actually don't need to. That's really good. So I'm going to use his ultimate. He's actually consuming the sword with his chest instead of pulling it out. So he's like reverse Raiden Shogun from Genshin Impact. Anyway, since he's ulted, you can see they have the Balefire Bind applied to them, meaning that they have their defense decreased by 30 and the damage taken increased by 50%. And in addition to that, we also get the 50% and the ult damage increase as well. So since we have the 3 stacks and Balefire's already applied, we're going to go ahead and use ACHERON's ultimate. We don't have the stacks applied to all of the right enemies, but that's totally okay. Not going to worry about that. 1.9 mil on ACHERON, E0S1. In this economy, that's crazy. All right, let's go ahead and use a skill. Raining swords. It's really, really such a cool animation. We'll go ahead and use ACHERON's skill here as well. And then Hyacinth's gonna attack. Now, the really cool thing is that you don't even have to apply a debuff to get the stacks for ACHERON in this team because Blade is going to allow you to just get them anyways with the Balefire Bind being applied every single time they attack. However, that also applies to Little Ika and follow-up attacks from Cypher. So in this one attack from Hyacinth, we're gonna get 2 stacks for ACHERON. And yeah, we're not getting the Cypher follow-up. So it's just the 2 stacks for ACHERON, which is huge. We're already at our ults again, like no issues whatsoever. So I think that's really cool. I'm gonna ult with ACHERON so I can get the bonus damage on Cypher, and then we'll use Cypher's ult as well. So boom, they blow up 1 mil. We Cypher follow-up attack, we Blade skill, and then we're gonna go and Cypher ult to do some true damage. Now the really, really cool thing is that we're just gonna be getting stacks for ACHERON nonstop. We're gonna also Blade ult here. And I just want you to look at this animation because I think it's really, really sick. Check this out. God, this is so cool. That's 980k, by the way. So pretty ridiculous amount of damage. Holy voice crack. We'll basic attack with Hyacinth here. We'll skill with Cypher. I'm going to wait until he spawns in some guys. Oh, real quick, just so you know, whenever we're getting hit, we're applying Balefire Bind to enemies. So I want you to watch the stacks right at the bottom when I unpause this. All right, I'm unpausing 3, 2, 1. So the stack for ACHERON is increasing whenever we take damage from them, because we are applying Balefire Bind to them. Now, unfortunately, not every enemy has it because these guys spawn in without dealing damage. And I am gonna go ahead and use ACHERON's ult here to clear them out. I could have used her ult earlier, but I wanted them all to be on the field, though we would have been already halfway to another ult, which is pretty crazy. And then I'll use blades as well. We might as well. Boom, they blow up 820k, baby. We'll use Hyacinth so that way we can get the Ika attack and we get another stack for ACHERON. I'm gonna go ahead and skill with Blade here, then skill with ACHERON to put us at 8 stacks, and then we basic attack, that puts us at 9. And you know what? I'm gonna just ult with ACHERON because we're already gonna like overcap and overflow a little bit, especially when we get attacked here. So I wanna show you kind of how fast we're able to get stacks. So we got one from Cypher follow-up, and then we're gonna basic attack with Cypher. So boom, we get a 5th stack here from Balefire. Then we get another stack on top of that. And then I can ult them, which is also ridiculous. Another Crimson Knot. We're going to skill them. And now we have ACHERON's ult as well. So we're going to do that. Boom, boom, boom. Get rid of all of the enemies. And he's at 1%. Okay, holy 1%. Wait for him to get his HP back, and then we'll just Cypher ult because we've been holding this for a minute. Let's get that little head start. You know what I mean? 1.4 mil. Thank you, Cypher. Dude, I love the car, man. The car is driving. The car is being driven. I'm gonna go ahead and skill with ACHERON, put us at 6. And then Blade does not have his ult up anymore. So this is the biggest downside, is that we don't apply the Balefire Bind. Even though he does already, you know, have it, we're gonna need to basic attack here and then basically get attacked again to be able to put up our ult field. But that's okay, we'll get attacked in just a second. We just have to wait until the enemy comes after us. But we should still be able to do this in about 2 cycles, which is cool. Boom. I'm gonna do this. And then now that Balefire Bind has been applied to everyone, I'm gonna ult with ACHERON. Okay, now he's gonna do really silly things. We're gonna basic attack here. Boom, ACHERON stacks. Boom, more ACHERON stacks. ACHERON ult, we blow them up. Dude, this actually feels so good. I'm so happy to be playing ACHERON again, man. It's just so nice. I'm gonna go ahead and use our skill here. Why not? Apply Balefire. Get our stacks for our King Blade here. Blade will get to use his attack again, but I mean, we basically won at this point, so we don't need to take any more cycles. I'll basic attack. I'll skill on Blade. We'll do this. Blade will ult. We have ACHERON ult as well. Blade did 329k. Wasn't that crazy? But we are going to get a Blade skill as well after this ult. So, yeah, I mean, we had so much backloaded damage right there before the turn of the cycle. I really think we could have done better too, but I was just too busy explaining things to pay too much attention. There it goes, 2 cycles. So that's pretty dang good, I think, for ACHERON in 2026. Holy. And I forgot to do this in battle, but just in case you want to see, I do not have any Eidolons activated on any of these characters. So they are all E0S1. So real quick, I will just go over the build that I was using, but this is a pre-release first impressions. You know, take everything I say with a grain of salt. There will be an official guide out later, okay? So I was using a signature light cone. A signature is pretty dang good. It's going to give him 30% more max HP, and it has a 1375 base HP, which is ridiculous. Now, at the start of his turn, he gains 20 energy. This looks really insane, but then you read the next line. It can only trigger 1 time each wave. So it's not like a permanent, always have the 20 energy every turn, and he just has amazing uptime. It's not like that. It's only kind of just to get him started at the beginning of a wave, and specifically at the beginning of content. But this light cone is a little bit selfish. It's going to increase his crit by 30% and make the enemy take 30% more crit damage from him. It's not going to help your entire team. It's going to help him, which, I mean, it'll help your entire team a little bit because he gets the 20 energy at the start of the fight, but it's not something that like you absolutely must have. But since his damage is significant, it will help you with your clears a lot. Now, you can run before the tutorial mission starts. This is actually a pretty solid light cone on him. However, I don't have the exact math to prove how many more ults you're going to be getting per cycle or anything like that. And overall, you will be missing out on a lot of damage if like compared to his signature, just because of this HP drop. But with this, he shouldn't have any uptime issues. Over that one, I would probably prefer Resolution Shines as Pearls of Sweat. This one is just going to add another layer of defense shred, so you can stack up an extra 16% defense shred on enemies with him, which is pretty dang solid. And I think for free-to-play players who happen to have pulled this on the gacha, gacha, this one is going to be the way to go. But you do have, before the tutorial mission starts, if you're completely free to play and don't have many nihility options at the moment. For his own personal damage, good night and sleep well at S5 is probably also going to be really good. But for now, those are my kind of main recommendations. We may see some more options on my official guide when I have like all the graphs and stuff to show you guys. But for first impressions, those are kind of my recommendations. As for relics, you do want to be running the new Divine Quarrying Mastersmith. It increases HP by 12% and increases your crit damage to defense shredded enemies by a pretty significant amount. It also buffs all of your allies when you apply defense shred to enemies, so we could see this used on some other characters as well. The bone collecting set is still really good. When max HP is 5,000 or higher, increases wearers crit damage by 28% and a 12% HP increase. We are at 7,000 right now. If we swap over to a free-to-play light cone, we are still above 5,000, so it is reachable. 5,000 might be reachable for me. And we don't even have an HP body, we have a crit rate body. We do have an HP orb and an ER rope, and that's just kind of like my preliminary setup that I want to run, but I'll let you guys know if there's any changes. The next thing I want to talk about though is kind of how versatile this character is. I need you guys to understand, like, he's pretty dang ridiculous. I was not expecting the new Blade to be this good, and you'll see in just a second. All right, so Bald here, ridiculously versatile character. So versatile that I actually took up every single one of these slots with different characters that you could play with him. So okay, not that one, but basically 10 team slots to showcase to you guys kind of how good he is, all right? So this is the team that we just played with Cypher. Obviously, Cypher's got a lot of her own debuffs that she applies to enemies as well. And with ACHERON, if you are playing an E0 ACHERON, you do need 2 Nihility characters to fully max out her damage. And with Mortenax Blade, you are able to replace the NPC Jiaoqiu. So I think that's pretty dang cool. In this team, you can also run other characters like Silverwolf. Now, from my personal testing, Silverwolf performed a little worse than Cypher in MOC, but she still is really good. And she can apply lightning or fire weakness to enemies. If the enemies are already lightning weak, she'll prioritize the fire. So there's that as an option. But yeah, Silverwolf is great for this. And in fact, you can use a lot of different nihilities if you're playing an ACHERON team. Black Swan got some buffs as well, but Jiaoqiu is really good still. I don't want you guys to get the idea that he's not. It's just that Cypher and Silverwolf I personally found to have a little bit better results. For healers and sustainers, you can run Hyacinth, and I highly recommend Hyacinth because, you know, she works well with the HP scaling teams, especially with this ultimate that increases max HP. That's going to help with damage. But you can also run Huohuo, which is a great pick for anyone that needs a lot of energy or just anyone that can benefit from attack buffs in the team. So she can actually work in this team if you want to use like Cypher or something and try to get more ults with her, and the attack buff's going to be useful. But you'll notice that I actually do have 2 preservation characters. I have Fushuan and I have Dan Heng. The really interesting thing with this is that Dan Heng by no means should work. He doesn't regenerate HP, and once you hit 1 HP, Blade is disabled. He's done until he's knocked down, right? So by no means should Dan Heng work. But if you do have his signature light cone and he's built very fast with energy regen, you can actually use this to regenerate HP on Blade, which will help you with shorter fights and being able to get the damage and the benefits from Dan Heng while still playing Blade. But I wouldn't recommend this if you don't have a signature. Otherwise, you're going to run out of HP like fairly quick. And then General Fu, she actually is a lot better than I think a lot of people realize with Blade, because Blade is dealing a ton of damage and Blade can be played with another DPS as well. So the benefits you get from increasing crit rate of allies is applying to basically everyone. And on top of that, you are getting some more max HP as well. She also heals allies. Now, it's not that much healing, but she can be used in a similar position to Dan Heng for some shorter fights and to get out some pretty solid damage. And if you have her signature, you can restore ally HP when it goes to the new wave. So that can also be really helpful for him. Now, as for other healers, I mean, they all work. They're all healers. It's just that these 2 are going to be kind of your primary go-tos. We already talked about ACHERON supports. Now, as for other DPS you can pair with him, Ashvale is kind of the go-to. He's actually a better character to showcase than ACHERON, but I just figured more people probably cared about ACHERON a little bit. But Ashvale is excellent with Mortenax Blade, and Fei Xiao in the follow-up team can also be played with Blade. Here's another follow-up attack team, so this is just another option if you have some older units or if you didn't pull Ashvale. Blade does help her a lot. And then I just put Jinglu in here because anytime anyone loses HP, Jinglu benefits from it. So with a Blade losing HP every time he skills or uses his ult, that can be pretty beneficial as well. So, I mean, that's kind of cope. I just really like Jinglu. Now, here's an example Ashvale team if you want to take advantage of some characters that you may already have from previous versions. This is Huohuo, this is Tribi. Tribi gonna benefit this whole team. Huohuo gonna benefit Ashvale and Tribi both with the extra energy they gain, and Mortenax Blade, of course. But the attack bonus on Ashvale is also really nice. Here's a main DPS team with Mortenax Blade with Sunday to battery him even further and help him get more ults to deal more damage. And I think that's it. That's all the things. It was a lot of characters, right? There's so many characters that can be played with Mortenax Blade. It is honestly kind of ridiculous how versatile he is. So I'm really happy with that. And you can expect more or less the same thing, me just going down the list of every single character that could ever possibly work with him in my guide video as well. So, but if you find that stuff helpful, make sure to subscribe to my channel because, you know, I'm making guides on all the characters that come out. And especially with the fake collab coming out, we're about to go sicko mode, okay? We're about to go so crazy. We're going to be doing tricks on it, Hoyo style. All right, so Bald's Eidolons are pretty ridiculous. His E1 in particular, I think is really powerful. When the zone is up, enemies get their all type res reduced by 20%, which is pretty ridiculous. There's a lot of characters that have this, but for a character that can do this much damage to also have it and to also be able to support other characters that do that much damage, pretty dang crazy. Also, whenever he uses extra skill, it delays the zone creeping up the action by 15%, which is really nice for maintaining his ult. And then his E2 is basically all follow-up attack focused. It's pretty ridiculous though. Whenever an ally uses an ultimate, it counts it as a follow-up. So there's going to be some crazy techs here where you can have characters with really high ult scalings that you run with a blade and then another follow-up attack support, and it just does like some ridiculous damage. In addition to that, follow-up attack damage dealt by allies increases by 75%, and the blade charge needed to be able to skill extra drops down to 7 instead of 9. So E1 and 2 are pretty substantial for him. E3 is an ult and talent level up, which is, you know, pretty big for his damage on his ult. Now E4 is interesting because it gives your allies 50% more damage dealt, right? And you might be thinking, wait, Brax, doesn't it already do that? Isn't that already a thing that exists that happens? And the answer is yes, it does. So 100% damage bonus. Thank you, E4. E5 is skill and basic attack level up, and E6 gives him extra charge whenever he consumes HP or takes damage. So this is going to make him do follow-ups significantly faster. In addition to that, this can apply basically once per turn of any ally. So every single turn that goes over with your ally characters, if he consumes HP or takes damage, he's also going to get charged, which is really, really nice. The other thing to consider with this is that there are light cones like Hyacinth light cone that also make him take damage. So with things like that, you would be able to get extra benefits and extra charge that would significantly increase his damage. And his second ult gets to be 150% of its original value. Now, it didn't say increases by, it says increases to. So that does likely mean that it's just going to be 50% higher multiplier here, which is still a lot considering it's HP scaling and he already does a lot with his ults. But basically that E6 is just going to make it so he attacks way more frequently with his follow-up attacks, and he does a lot more damage on his ult, and he can be played with Hyacinth Light Cone or Jinglu's HP drain and stuff like that, and he gets like a lot more value and does a lot more attacks. So that's Mortenax Blade. Now, if you asked me what I thought about Mortenax Blade in 2026 as I'm writing this video, and by writing I mean speaking out loud because it's not even written, it's just kind of like off the top of the head. Mortenax Blade, I think, is one of the most versatile units they've released in 4.x. We've had the Elation Club where it's all been, you pull one Elation character, well, you better get a couple more because you're cooked otherwise. And I think that while Elation's been fun and new, it is a little annoying that, like, okay, it's a little exclusive, right? Well, Mortenax Blade doesn't really have that problem. He's just kind of a good support overall. He's going to work well for characters that don't even have direct synergies with him because he has so many debuffs he can apply to enemies. But for characters that do have direct synergies with him, he gets a lot of value as well. I think that if you are a new player, a free-to-play player, or anyone that doesn't feel like they have strong supports on their account, Blade is probably going to be like the perfect character that you need to fill that slot. He is ridiculously good. The only thing you need on his team is a good healer or very fast preservation characters with their signature light cone. Unless it's Japard or March 7th. Actually, I think even March 7th heals, so I think it's literally just a Japard who's cooked. Yeah. So preservations minus Japard. Either way, I think he's really, really good. If you guys want to be there when I pull him on my account, make sure to follow twitch.tv/Braxophone. And thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you've enjoyed, feel free to subscribe to the channel for more Honkai Star Rail content as well as other anime games. And I will catch you guys next time.